While you may not believe in the idea that little green men have visited Earth before, most people nowadays agree that it's completely asinine to ignore the fact that our universe is infinite and the probability that there could be life on other planets is very high. So with all that being said, here are 4 stories from some people who have claimed to be abducted by beings from another world. I'm your host, Jacob Perret, and welcome to Something Sinister. On January 25th, 1967, Betty Andreessen and her family came into contact with beings she described as having pear-shaped heads, large eyes, and a slit for a mouth that never moved, as the beings only communicated through telepathy. The abduction case began when Betty's children noticed a strange red light coming from the windows. Betty's father then peered out the window to see a strange craft had landed in their yard, and 5 odd-looking figures approaching the house. Before the family had time to react, the beings walked straight through the wooden door and set the family into a state of suspended animation. The beings then began to communicate with Betty through telepathy, before taking her outside and aboard their craft. While on the ship, Betty faintly recalls being subjected to various medical experiments, some being very painful. Upon returning home, she found her family still in a trance-like state. Betty, at the time, was a devoted Christian, and it considers her experience to hold some religious meaning.
On November 5th, 1975, Travis Walton was riding home in a truck full of coworkers from a lumber job near Snowflake, Arizona. On their drive, the group encountered a saucer-shaped ship making a high-pitched buzzing sound. When Walton exited the car, a bright light knocked him to the ground, and his coworkers drove off in fright. Walton awoke in a hospital-like room where a short, bald creature covered his face with clear plastic, and he blacked out. When he regained his senses, Walton found himself walking along the highway as the ship flew away. Unknown to him, Walton had been missing for 5 days. When put through polygraph tests, Walton's story held up, and unsuccessful helicopter and dog searches, as well as deadly nighttime temperatures, give validity to his extraterrestrial abduction. Walton later wrote on his close encounter in the 1978 book The Walton Experience, later adapted into the movie Fire in the Sky in 1993.
Author Whitley Strieber, now known for his books regarding the UFO phenomenon, was not always an author known for this sort of literature. Strieber and his family had retreated to an isolated cabin in the woods during the winter of 1985. Strieber at the time was already an established author, so he had previously set up a security system around the house. During the night of December 26th, Strieber recalls activating the security system before going to bed. At some point in time during the middle of the night, Strieber awoke to the sound of something unusual. Believing his home had been broken into, he sat up to find himself face to face with a strange creature standing in the doorway of his bedroom. The next thing he remembers is waking up in the woods, alone, with no recollection of the previous events. Later on, Strieber subjected himself to hypnosis, where he recalled being levitated on board a strange craft. The beings on the ship, varying in size and appearance, had big black, hypnotic eyes. Strieber says they inserted a large needle into his head and inserted a strange device into his rectum. Doctors have since gone on to diagnose Strieber with temporal lobe epilepsy, which has a side effect of hallucinations.
On September 19, 1961, married couple Barney and Betty Hill were driving from Niagara Falls to their home of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, when they observed a pancake-shaped craft flashing multicolored lights. The two followed the craft until it descended to within 80 feet of their car, and they observed roughly 10 gray-skinned figures through the craft's windows. After hearing a series of bizarre sounds, the couple's consciousness dimmed, and when it returned, they found themselves driving again. After arriving home, they realized their trip that should have taken 4 hours had taken 7, that their watches had stopped working, and that their clothes were slightly torn in places. The couple also felt strangely compelled to take long showers and examine parts of their bodies. 10 days later, Betty experienced intensely vivid dreams in which she and Barney were taken through a forest by the humanoid beings and into their craft. Inside, the aliens performed several examinations, at one point using a painful needle. The Hills account was turned into the best-selling book The Interrupted Journey in 1966 and the TV movie The UFO Incident in 1975.